Hello everyone. Hi once again. Welcome back now to the session 4 of the show. Today's last session. It is promoting sustainable agriculture in Africa, future-proofing agriculture. So now I would like to invite our first speaker of this session, which is Mr. Shlom Zion Haflan. He is the founder and chairman of our gold sponsor, Stardust Fields. Mr. Shlom Zion would be giving his presentation on vertical indoor farming and climate change in our world. So, Mr. Shlom Zion, the stage is yours now.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I hope that everybody can hear me. I thank you all for joining me. I thank you for joining me today to the Africa Agri Expo. We opened this convention basically at a critical time, a time in which the planet has used all of the signs and alarm to point out that some immediate change need to be required here. The August report of the IPCC basically shocked everybody, but not us, as he said that the climate change is widespread, rapid, and intensifying. I'm here today when climate change threatens Africa agriculture's sustainability and development. I'm here to discuss some practical method of indoor vertical farming that can be immediately implemented in facilities all around the world. My name is Shlom Zion. I'm the co-founder of Stardust Fields. Stardust Fields is a green urban vertical farming, and we are also the exclusive reseller of Grow Boxco, an American manufacturer of converted shipping container for vertical farming. Basically, what we offer is a ready-to-use, sustainable solution that provides fresh food all year round with no soil, no pesticides, and almost 90% less water than the traditional agriculture. Basically, to grow vegetable inside an indoor vertical container allows the finest agricultural product to be readily available while conserving space, water, time, and resources. I'll start my presentation to show in a short way how indoor vertical farming can provide clean, safe food with no used soil at all. Like I say, almost 90% less water than traditional agriculture. It can be available all year round for any business and any community worldwide. Our vision basically is being implemented all around the world those days. Sorry. Basically, imagine an enterpriser or a reseller that having a space full of containers and a constant fresh supply of greens that need no transportation, no washing, no packing. The vertical indoor farming uses high technology to offer a valuable, affordable, and accessible solution that can make revolution in how we imagine the independence and food security in other countries. Thinking out of the box led us to the many benefits of going inside the box and to establish a process that can be easily duplicated in any environment, urban or rural. I would like briefly to discuss three major factors: the weather, the water, and the soil. Of course, that water is the most important resources in our world. And basically what we did in the indoor hydroponic agriculture, we eliminated most of the use of it. The hydroponic systems uses 90% less water, and it's beating any other option by far. This first advantage by itself creates a dramatic change, and we all understand the possibilities it offers. Secondly, the container takes the weather and the sun out of the equation and creates its own microclimate. Scorching sun or lack of it, droughts or sandstorm, hail or freeze, all of them stay out of the container and pose much less of a risk. The container controls its own climate, watering, fertilizing, and light cycle with advanced full spectrum LED that offers the optimal light condition for crops, regardless the season that you have or the latitude that your country is. Complementary, the sun offers an effective energy source when it's available throughout an option of solar panels. The grower's independence of the season, the container has its own ecosystem, and you have the opportunity and the freedom to grow any kind of products throughout the year, regardless the weather. In an ever-growing global population, the access to land and the condition of the soil are two factors that communities are struggling with. Overfarming has exhausted our planet and depletes soils of minerals, nitrogen, and healthy microbial activity, resulting in poor crops at the best and polluted land all the time. Soil is a resource that basically people use inefficiently. In the Indo-vertical farming, it's all about efficiency and the minimal, precise use of resources in the most sustainable way. The containers need no soil, like I said, no pesticides, almost no water. In many ways, the hydroponic agriculture embodies the concept of modern self-sufficiency. We're harnessing the power of high technology and translating it to practical and affordable solution. This is where we're headed to. There are several advantages to the plug-and-play food cultivation that I want to briefly describe. First of all, the process from sowing until harvesting is almost all of it automatically. It keeps improving itself all the time by self-learning capabilities. By self-monitoring every detail and precise degree of temperature and humidity condition, it refines each stage of the growth to the optimal results possible. It extends the life shelf of the products and delivers it in the best shape it can be. This is one of the ways we can offer some food security and future independence to places that are reliable to distance import of agriculture. This is the base of the success of the Indo-vertical farming. Instead of spreading crops in acres of land, exposing to the elements and to the endless list of risk, dangerous of the weather, you need to invest only one time. Each container arrives set up and ready to use with a user-friendly, easy-to-operate system, providing the optimal growing condition that you have. You can put it in any area, in a storehouse, in a warehouse, or in a field. Basically, you create your own farm. It eliminates most of the cost and the wasteful global chain of supply. This is what usually we are having today, a very fragile net that have a very devastating environmental effect and a very considerable financial cost. The vertical indoor farming removes most of the needs of the time-consuming communication with distant suppliers. You can harvest the exact amount of food that you need every day, every season. Fresh, constant, and ready to use. Basically, one 40-feet container can produce what 1.5 acres of land can do every year. My friend, our awareness of the climate crisis dictates action. This is a real need for indoor agriculture industry in our world. It can be easily carried with any condition on any weather and any place in the world. Vertical indoor farming is a new path for classical traditional agriculture, one that we have in the next years all around the world. What happened today in the world? Everybody's talking about the soil, the land, what we can do, how to improve everything. But we need to see what is going to be in the next couple of years, 5, 10 years from now. The sun is not productive in most of the world. Most of the time, she's destroying most of the crops. And everybody needs to find some different solution to those problems. So what we offer basically, it's a new way. It's an electronic way. It's not so cheap, basically, to start with. But for the long run, this is how we see the future of the agriculture. We can't rely on the sun anymore. We can't rely on the land. We need to find some new technology, opportunities to look for the future agriculture for everybody, especially for our children and what is going to be in the future. So we think that we can provide a very good solution for places that have a lot of problem with the weather, have a lot of problem with the labor cost and all the other things that the change of supply is doing in the world. And we need to deliver a new path for these things. I want to thank you all for this short but intensive speeching that I did. And I just want to tell you something, that we keep push the sky away all the time. We need to think about the future and how we bring some new solution to the agri-tech industry. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have some questions, I will be happy to answer to you.
Thank you so much, Ramzian. Thank you so much for your insightful speech. Now we would move to our next speaker. Due to some reason, Mr. Andre was unable to join us for this session. So I would like to invite now Henry Gordon Smith, who is the founder and CEO of Agritexture. I think the audience are eagerly waiting for his presentation now. So without wasting any further time, I would hand over the stage to you, Henry. Please, the stage is yours.
Okay, hello, thank you everyone. I'm Henry Gordon Smith. I sound American, but I'm half Czech, half British, and I'm in Europe right now. And I'll be giving my presentation coming up, pulling it up here in a moment, all about controlled environment agriculture. So you heard my colleague just spoke about vertical farming, and vertical farming is one type of controlled environment agriculture. So my job today is to hopefully help you understand what controlled environment agriculture is more broadly, and its potential role in Africa. And as I said, I'm from Agritexture Consulting. You can feel free to contact me or find me on social media. So first of all, about Agritexture, our mission is to accelerate the agricultural industry with climate smart strategies. So again, we've talked about climate change already today. How do we adapt to this? How do we mitigate it? Well, climate smart strategies are agricultural methods that use technologies to adapt to climate change and prepare for the future. And vertical farming, I agree with my colleague, is one of those ways to do it. And our vision is that localizing food, bringing it closer to cities and bringing it indoors in some cases and making it smarter can be economically feasible and better for the environment. That's the vision we're working towards, and it is a journey. And so we do this through a range of consulting services. We do concept development. If you have an idea for vertical farming, we develop that idea, give you the economics. If you want to design a farm, we do that as well. If you want to invest in one, we do due diligence. If you want to understand a market, you get the idea. We are actually the world's leading consulting firm for controlled environment agriculture. We've advised on over 130 projects in 30 countries. And the reason why we have so much variety is because we don't limit ourselves to one method. We don't believe there is one size fits all. We don't believe that vertical farming is the solution alone. We believe that the context still matters when we think about technology. What is the economic context? Who's going to buy the product? How much are they willing to pay? What is the energy context? What is the labor context? All of these things drive the right kinds of technologies that are going to make a farm successful, and matching them together. Sometimes it may be greenhouses, sometimes it may be soil, and sometimes it may be vertical farms. So I'm trying to help you think more strategically about the possibilities. And we've learned from the variety of climates and conditions a lot to bring to the table. And one important thing about Agritexture is we're technology agnostic. So we don't sell equipment. So we work directly for our clients and we work with vendors of all kinds, but we don't get commissions for selling that equipment, which allows us to focus on being open to any possible technology and solution for our clients, as opposed to pushing them in one direction. So let's just get into what is controlled environment agriculture, or CEA. This is a really popular topic now. I've been in this for 10 years. So I started as a blogger 10 years ago, reporting on the sector. And so I've seen the growth of the first vertical farms around the world, and I've seen the growth of the sector from a policy to investment perspective. So I know one or two things about this. So this is a spectrum of urban agriculture, which is growing food in or very close to the city. On one side, we have soil-based farms, community farms. Then we have Brooklyn Grange. This is an example of a rooftop farm. Harlem Grown, I'm calling it a hybrid because they have a soil-based plot and they have a simple hydroponic greenhouse. Sky Vegetables is a probably about a 2,000 square meter rooftop hydroponic greenhouse on top of a residential building. Again, all of these are in New York. And Arrow Farms, although it's based in New Jersey, is an example of a sort of mega vertical farming company. So the box around this is where we start to get into controlled environment agriculture. And the simplest way to understand it is, just as my colleague mentioned before, the sun can be good in some ways, it can be bad in other ways. Controlling the environmental conditions, the temperature, the ventilation, the nutrients, the lighting, allows you to optimize the plant to its maximum. And so this allows it to basically grow anywhere, but you do have to make that investment into the right equipment. And so there are trade-offs across this spectrum. Soil is not bad necessarily all the time. You get certain things with soil production that you don't get with vertical farming or with greenhouses. For example, you can grow a much, much wider variety of crops in soil than you can in vertical farms or greenhouses. It also costs much less from a capital perspective at the beginning to get started. And it also has a very different impact on sequestering carbon. When we're talking about protecting the environment and adapting to climate change, sequestering carbon is one of those elements that vertical farming and greenhouses don't necessarily do effectively today as much as soil. There's also different areas that you can think about the impact, right? There's social impact, economic, environmental. Aesthetic is, does it inspire us to live greener? But the three main ones are really social, economic, and environmental, right? That triple bottom line. And again, this varies a lot. It's very difficult to make a lot of money with a small soil-based farm in a city, or even soil-based farms in general, it's very difficult. But when you start to control the factors, you can actually create more of an economic impact. So social impacts, however, are a bit better with soil because it's a bit more open, right? You can have a community garden. Come on, let's learn, come in. But if you have a big greenhouse or a vertical farm, you need to protect that from the outside to make sure that the plants are secure and safe because it's a productive commercial farm. So I'm just trying to help you frame your thinking and think strategically, because if you're considering building a farm of any kind or supporting farming of any kind, you need to understand the differences and how to understand your impact. I always ask my clients, what matters more to you, social impact, economic impact, or environmental? Because you can't really do all of them 100%. You always have to make some choices to decide on which one is your most important. And this is just another way of looking at that. So when we go across the spectrum, we can see some of these changes. So on the more high-tech side for greenhouses and vertical farms, we have much better economic impacts. With the water savings, right? If I'm somewhere in the Middle East or parts of Africa with limited arable land or limited water, then greenhouses and hydroponic and vertical farming systems can have a very important impact. So, but at the same time, with the soil-based systems, we tend to see a better impact from an aesthetic and green infrastructure perspective, managing rainwater, increasing biodiversity, sequestering carbon, et cetera. So these are some of the choices you would make, especially in the context of a city. And I know we're not just talking about cities here, but this I think should help you frame your thinking a little bit more. Let's just look at some case studies. Let's look at some examples here. So this is Sky Vegetables again. So this is a greenhouse, which is hydroponic. It's growing a mix of herbs and leafy greens. It's on an affordable housing building, a LEED Platinum building. So the greenhouse was designed as part of the building. It's actually a very unique project because you're not typically allowed to build commercial greenhouses on residential structures, but it was permitted here. And they have to give 10% of their product to the community. So the social impact connected to that. But it's a for-profit farm and it recycles water from the rain and it actually cleans that and pumps it up. You can sort of see here between the rows, there's these little tubes. They take waste heat from the building and the apartments and heat the plants to reduce heat in the wintertime or heat needs in the wintertime. It's an amazing project. This is actually where I learned hydroponics. It's a project that's very close to me. But this size of farm is very difficult to make money on. You do need to get quite a bit bigger. So it's about 800 square feet, so 800 square meters, maybe 1,000 square meters in total, I would say. Very interesting project. If you Google it, you can see some of the other pictures of the building with the greenhouse on top. Arrow Farms is kind of known as one of the biggest vertical farming companies and also one of the oldest. And I just wanted to show you this to show you what sort of a large scale vertical farm looks like. So as you can see here, it's really about going vertical and stacking many levels, at least what they're pursuing here. But what we actually see most of the time is that vertical farms are not necessarily about going that high, but they are about creating verticality. So sometimes we see 6 levels, more commonly 4 levels, or the example you just saw in a container, which can have probably 4 to 6 levels depending on which the crop are. And these are typically done in big warehouses and outside of the city. And the benefits here are producing really millions of pounds of fresh greens in a food safe way. I think that's one of the things that Arrow Farms does really well, is their commitment to food safety. Farm 1 is a different kind of vertical farm, right? So Arrow Farms is in New Jersey, away from the city. And I want you to think about, in the context of Africa, like where these could be placed, because there's obviously many different types of urban contexts in Africa. Farm 1 is in Manhattan. This one is actually our client as well. And we worked with them to design their first facility, the first vertical farm in Manhattan. And it's in a basement. So they took a basement and they repurposed it into this farm, but they're not growing leafy greens. They're growing really specialty products. In fact, 500 different varieties that they sell to high-end restaurants. And it's amazing. And they really can inspire flavor and excitement. And they've just announced and actually opened and done their first harvest with their 3rd farm in New York City. So some of them are in the city, some of them are outside. The main advantages really are that because you don't have the distractions of sun and weather, you can control the variables and grow amazing flavor, have no pesticides. And as was mentioned by my colleague, you're using these recirculating hydroponic systems to save a lot of water, which is a great benefit for certain contexts. But here, like this farm, for example, is really saying, if you're a chef and you want something special, you don't need to order it by plane or by truck from far away. Talk to me, Farm 1, and I will do my best to grow it for you. And it's sort of a chef's farm, which is really interesting. Square Roots is an example of containers. This was Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother, hired us to develop this facility and get them launched for their first time. This is an example of, their model has adapted a lot since the beginning, but at the beginning, it was 10 entrepreneurs. Each entrepreneur gets a container to develop their farming business, learn vertical farming, and sell the product. And it was amazing. There were 10 spaces available, and we got 480 applications for these spaces. These were not paid jobs. They had to learn to farm, and they had to grow and build their own businesses, and they would get the profit from the business over a year period as part of an accelerator sort of for vertical farming. But I was amazed by the enthusiasm of young people to get their hands dirty and to learn these methods. And it's because they're so excited about technology. And that's one of the main value propositions that's possible for the African context as there's more urbanization, is that technology can reignite interest in the agricultural sector. And that's something that urban farming, especially high-tech urban farming, I see around the world, gets young people excited about agriculture for the first time. Smallhold grows mushrooms, and they grow them in sort of centralized larger facilities, and then they distribute them to retailers in what's a distributed farming model. And so they're growing these mushrooms again to excite the customer and say, you know what, mushrooms are not boring, they're delicious and beautiful. Smallhold has been featured in Vogue magazine. And so this is an interesting sort of, they call it a hub and spoke model, right? Distributed. So you have a centralized location to optimize efficiency, and then a location closer to the customer to optimize marketability and the best margins possible. Really incredible company as well. Teens for Food Justice is an organization I'm a board member at, and this is an example of how vertical farming, even though it's expensive, can be used to transform the lives of youth. So you may not know this, but 1 in 4 children in New York City go hungry. They get their food from school most of the time. They get most of their nutrition from school. And so schools need to play an important role in how they eat and where they get their food. So Teens for Food Justice takes unused spaces in schools and turns them into vertical farms that are growing in a commercial way. They learn how to build the farms. They learn how to manage them properly. And they actually grow the food, harvest it, and serve it to their own students as well. This is transforming the lives. We're seeing better test scores. We're seeing more attendance in school. We're seeing them learn skills that are very important. And this is an organization that's very exciting to me. They have 5 farms in New York City, and they're expanding to Miami and Colorado, and Denver, Colorado. If you're curious about any of these, by the way, we've built a software. If you don't want to go for consulting, or if you want to sort of play with your own numbers, we built a software called Agritexture Designer, where you can estimate the CapEx and OpEx of any greenhouse or vertical farm on Earth. It's quite revolutionary because we're sort of democratizing access to information. So if someone claims it's sustainable or it's profitable or it's going to grow this much, you can actually double check it with the software and do your own feasibility studies. And that's design.agritexture.com. Let's go to case studies from Africa. We've worked on just a very few projects in Africa. I would not say I'm an expert in Africa, so I'm very honored to be here speaking to you about this. But let's look at what we've done so far. So the first one is Claudia Ondo, and Claudia came to us and she said, I've won a World Bank grant to build an urban farm in Libreville, Gabon, and I want your help on it. I don't know how to do it. And so it was a little bit small for our feasibility study, but it kicked off a new impact project initiative that we had to help women and to help people that need help with discounted fees. Essentially, it's an impact sort of project. But anyway, she was a client. And it's really interesting in Libreville because although they do have a pretty good amount of production in Gabon, the roads are so bad and most of the population is on the port that they are importing more food. So we can see here that imports are growing by 11% per year. And that's actually less quality food and more expensive food. So Claudia was really onto something. She said, let's just grow some of it here. We've got available spaces. So she took a vacant lot, we designed the system with her, and she built a greenhouse and she's operating. These pictures are from her farm. This is that she's built a dome around it and a simple hydroponic system, and she's extremely inspiring as far as a female entrepreneur, an African entrepreneur in the space. But I think the lesson here is, what is the problem in your context? What is the challenge? Is the challenge that the quality of the food isn't good? Is the challenge that the food isn't safe? Is the challenge that too much water is being used or there's not any available land? Whatever that challenge is, focus in on it and find the market opportunity like Claudia did and get closer and closer to how the technology will match that problem. Because again, there is no one size fits all, and your job is to understand, and my job is to understand, how do we match the right solution to the problem? And it starts with really understanding the market and the problem itself. If we go over to Ghana, we've been doing some work there. It's still in development. It's not finished like the previous one, but it's quite interesting. So in the case of Ghana, it's a relatively advanced African country, but it does have some challenges around arable land, ecology impacts, and also a lot of challenges with cost structures for certain pieces. There's also food safety issues that are happening. But there's a lot of initiatives to sort of develop large greenhouses in Ghana, even some of it for export, but also for local production. So first, what we did is we analyzed what are the limiting factors. So this is the temperature across Ghana throughout the year. So it's typically quite warm, not very surprising. That would result in decreased yields, bolting, smaller fruits, and other issues. High humidity is also an issue. That's going to increase pathogens, diseases, affect pollination, and affect the transpiration of the plants. Sunlight, okay, looks like we've got something good there. So, this is a pretty good condition for a greenhouse or maybe potentially a vertical farm if the capital cost could be justified. But again, vertical farms are very expensive from the upfront cost. They can be profitable, but relative to greenhouses, they are much more expensive. And our software can answer how much expensive if you want to look at that. So if we look a little bit further, we have to look at the boundaries for the crop. So we were looking at leafy greens, roses, and eggplants, and those are marked on this chart here. And we can look at the averages. So we see that we're a little bit outside of the temperatures that we need. So the black lines are different averages throughout the month in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana. And so we're not quite there yet. So controlled environment agriculture is about how do we supplement this? How do we fill this in? So the current design that's happening in Ghana is very simple greenhouses, plastic, natural ventilation, and minimal automation. So these get you only so far and do not solve the problems noted here. So we decided to really focus on an improved design, more climate control systems, estimating that CapEx and that return, cooling alternatives, and specialized substrates that can handle the humidity and avoid some of the pathogens that we're looking at here. The output is increased yields, more water efficiency, and extension of the growing seasons. And so we decrease the number of growth cycles that are needed, waste, and use of pesticides. So why CA in Africa? One is just the rapid growth of population that we're seeing, and also the increase of urbanization. People are getting wealthier, they're moving to the cities where they have more opportunity. And as that happens, they actually are losing some of the ability to grow food for that population. So we need to find ways to grow food using less space closer to the city. controlled environment agriculture can provide that solution. Arable land is in decline. Controlled environment agriculture does not need any arable land. It can be put on any kind of land with different costs, but you don't need to have soil that's fertile. You don't need any soil necessarily. So that's an advantage and a response to the issues happening in Africa. Food safety as well, and the quality from that is an important one. 1 in 10 people every year globally will get a foodborne illness. And in Africa, due to limited management of food safety, this is a bigger concern. And as people move to the city, they demand higher quality products, and they're probably willing to pay for that. So there's an economic opportunity to say our food is safer, our food is higher quality, and to certify that in one way. Extreme climate change and weather. So as weather gets worse, it does also damage conventional agriculture, which is exposed to that environment. I'm in the Czech Republic right now. We're working with hop farmers, and they're experiencing droughts year over year that are affecting their yields, and that whole outdoor farming system is at threat. That's one of thousands of examples around the world. And so it's a major issue. I'm just wrapping up here. So things that would need to be done is policy and infrastructure programs, free in-person food safety trainings, really focusing on the entrepreneurship piece with incubators and accelerators. Just wrapping up, I'm almost at the end here. And one thing I wanted to just highlight is we are trying to gather data and share it with people through the first, or actually not the first, but we started the first, but this is the third year, global census of CEA. So what are farms growing? What are their challenges? What are the opportunities? And so these are some of the data points we've gathered from last year, and we also have 2019. We invite you to promote it and participate in it. Agritexture.com/census. You can also download the previous years and learn a lot about CEA through our free resources there. Thank you everyone for this opportunity to speak to you today. It's really a pleasure. And again, there's so much opportunity in Africa. It's going to be really exciting to see.
Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you so much for your great presentation. It was very well explained. If somebody have any questions, they can please put up them in the Q&A section, and towards the end of the session, we may ask them to the speakers. So now moving ahead, we will invite Mr. Andrew Lala. He is the Chief Strategy and Growth Officer at Ignitia. He would now enlighten us about enabling sustainable and climate-smart agriculture through digital tools and platforms. Mr. Andrew, please, the stage is yours now.
Thank you, Afshin, and thank you to everybody for tuning in. Like I said, my name is Andrew Lala. I'm the Chief Strategy and Growth Officer at Ignitia. Today, I'm really going to do a dive into what it means to future-proof African agriculture, and then I'm going to share a case study of our experiences as a weather forecast, insight, and intelligence company. So let me get started on some of these. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about enabling sustainable and climate-smart agriculture through digital tools and platforms. Just to give you a snapshot of who Ignitia is. So we're based in Sweden, and we provide weather insights and intelligence. We currently have 1.9 million customers across West Africa who are adapting to climate change, optimizing input use, and increasing yields. Our model recently just got extended to Brazil. So in addition to the countries you see here, we're also covering West Africa and Brazil. We get these forecasts into the hands of distribution partners, so we work alongside large mobile network operators, and we're happy to have been supported by innovation partners like Google X, where we won a moonshot with them. We look at how our technology is being used by farmers and other agricultural stakeholders, and understand things of how we can drive behavior change for specific practices related to climate change. And we're super excited that we have a very high net promoter score, which we also monitor. So what does Ignitia have to do with all this? Before we dive into kind of some of the different tools out there, I wanted to take a second, and I know Henry set us up nicely in this idea of matching tools to problems. And in future-proofing African agriculture, Ignitia looks at these economic, social, and environmental challenges facing the continent. You have a massive demographic shift to youth, where by 2030, it's projected there'll be over 1 billion working age population on the continent. You have economies that are heavily dependent on agricultural commodities and volatile oil and gas industry. This isn't just Nigeria, it's many other countries across the continent. You have climate change, one of the largest risks, where you're going to see massive changes to weather patterns, to crop appropriateness, to shifting disease and pests. The shift into urbanization, where rural areas are being drained of working age populations as they seek work in urban areas, and rising conflict and interrelated uneven economic growth. We look at that framework and we can look at those as opportunities. So how can we take these enablers and future-proof any digital tool or any system to address these challenges? So what are some of the things we're looking at and that get us excited about addressing these very large challenges in front of us within African agriculture? One is technology advancement. You see massive mobile phone penetration, which will shift to smartphone penetration as mobile network operators and satellite-based internet providers begin to make larger and larger investments to connect more and more households. You see household consumption increases as middle classes get built up with industrialization. You see pressures on local and sustainable sourcing. So this isn't just large FMCG companies engaging in direct trade with farmers, but this is also the rise of these the middle class is giving rise to larger regional markets to source locally. Some countries are adopting policies where you have import substitution. Why would you import rice and tomatoes or other foodstuffs from other countries when your own farmers and industry can produce that here? You also have a focus on youth employment policies. How do we train and equip youth for the jobs of tomorrow? You also see the rise of these domestic and regional agribusiness companies competing on global scales. And then you also see increased investment and buzz, frankly, around a lot of these ag tech tools. So when we're looking at how digital tools and platforms can address these challenges, we look a lot at these intersections between farmer trends and agribusiness trends along different supply chains. So farmers, in the face of climate change, are having to adapt to changing crops, changing livelihood strategies, looking at different inputs like hybrid seed varietals, improved integrated pest management systems, all to de-risk production and ensure that even with rising temperatures and shifting weather patterns, they're able to continue to be productive on the land that they have. That idea of sustainable intensification. On the other side, you see agribusinesses having a larger focus on traceability. Where does the food come from? And this is that theme that I think Henry was talking about earlier on food safety, compliance, how to trade. If you're going to look to export certain cash crops, you need a traceable supply. So there's a bunch of innovation areas connecting farmers and agribusinesses, like supply chain transparency, like market information, managing farm operations, or the development of new crop inputs. And so we were a part of this study that was done by ISF Advisors, where it was categorizing all of the sustainable and climate smart advisory services currently in Africa, and looking at everything from public extension models to help farmers and supply chain actors to adopt better practices, become more productive, become more competitive entities, all the way to 7 on the specialized service providers. And so Ignitia was one of those interviewed companies. And I think it's always important to keep in the back of our mind that there is no one-stop shop for every single type of challenge that a farmer or a particular value chain is facing, particularly when you look at the varying challenges of youth in agriculture, of climate change shifting the appropriateness, And so there are some tools and solutions out there that are specifically focused on looking at, for example, what is the appropriateness of cocoa production in Cote d'Ivoire, where you have over 1 million producers. What's being grown today in the areas where it's being grown is not where it's going to be grown tomorrow. And I think one thing we keep coming back to as a weather technology company is 96% of agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa is rain-fed. And so you see those trends repeated across the globe. It's in the 70% range for Latin America. It's in 67% being rain-fed in Asia. So we have to think about what are the basic building blocks we need in terms of technology, tools, and services to farmers to be able to prepare them for these changes. So digital tools such as Ignitia's are positioned to build resilience to climate change, improve agribusiness competitiveness, and drive technology adoption to future-proof agriculture. So before, when I was talking about youth, you have the outflows to urban areas, you have an aging farmer population. Technology is one way we can address that gap in getting youth excited about agriculture and building up the technology enablement of these different value chains. And when we look at leveraging new technology for optimizing production costs and reducing supply chain risks, again, there's a role for technology in mapping those risks, in helping to provide advisory services that help farmers or agribusinesses make better decisions, not only around the long-term decisions of what to plant, where to plant it, but then also how to change shorter-term decision-making around when to plant, when to apply fertilizer, when to harvest, when to dry, all in anticipation of some of these larger climate change challenges that we're facing today on these weather-related risks. So one case study I wanted to do, you have the whole host of tools, some of which are helping farmers on traceability be better connected to off-takers. Other times it's tools for off-takers to help manage supply chain risks. But at Ignitia, we are a weather risk company. So the case study here is weather-related risks really underpin a lot of the yield increases we're trying to see within these value chains, and mitigating these risks are fundamental to farm efficiency. And so, like I was mentioning, there's some shorter term decision making, like timing of sowing, weeding, drying, harvesting steps, the application of spray fertilizers, irrigation, to be able to manage resources, the longer term decision making of land and labor planning, crop cycle planning for primary crops, for diversification crops, intercropping, and then also just stock positioning, loading, and transportation planning. So one thing that's happened in recent years is the development of machine learning technology, something we've been able to take advantage of, where we look at current weather forecasts and the system that's been in place. And we're looking at, even if those forecasts are accessible to farmers and agricultural service providers, they really don't cover certain areas of the tropical belt, mountainous zones, those with microclimates accurately. And so we can look at the underlying models like ECMWF, GFS, and UK Met that provide the data to most of the forecasts you would have on your phone or that you would access through these third-party apps. Take ground station data, they tweak it with some meteorologists, and then weather organizations distribute it, or you see it, broadcast over the radio. The problem is that a lot of these global models are great for large storm systems, but tropical storm scales are smaller, like you would see in Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire or Brazil. All along the tropical belt, that one side of the village can be bone dry, the other side can be drenched. And a lot of that has to do with the differences that we're only able to see now through better remote sensing technology and better modeling. So what Ignitia's done is leveraged a lot of the technologies that are available to us now, like satellite-based technology, imaging, machine learning processes, and developed a new tool for weather forecasting in those really hard to predict areas. So what we do as one of these climate smart companies is look at collecting a bunch of data sources, computing forecasts, distributing them through multiple channels, and ultimately impacting farmers. And so we have these two main distribution channels that are designed to drive widespread access to rapidly scale to reach farmers and agribusinesses across the tropics. One, like I was mentioning at the top of the talk, was about partnering with telecommunication companies. So if they have a weather tool or app, we partner with them to be the underlying data provider for those forecasts. So a farmer is able to register their location using tower proxy, and then we are able to match that with our forecasts and provide him or her with seasonal, monthly, and daily forecasts. It's a proven scalable model, but it's not going to address everything because it's a weather forecast based service. Looking at some of the other tools and advisories we can provide is where we'd look at the bottom, where it's B2B2C, where we're basically looking at how can Ignitia partner with finance and insurance companies, reinsurers, with crop input companies, with extension service providers, with aggregators, every agricultural stakeholder who both faces weather-related risks and is working alongside the farmer, either as a customer or a supplier. We want to be able to bundle our services for a superior value proposition to that farmer. And so this requires a lot of business partnerships. It requires a lot of business model innovation. We know that there's cash flow constraints in the farmers. There's a lot of fragmentation of farmers. So we're eager to look at this, apply this kind of new thinking to future-proof African agriculture, not only for anticipating the challenges of climate change, but also taking advantage of some of these new trends that we see in technology advancement, like machine learning or smartphone penetration, so that extension agents, input distributors can be equipped with better tools to help them either sell a better seed varietal, help the farmer to plant at the right time or apply fertilizers at the right time, or all of these new systems, tools, and technologies that we wouldn't have been able to do a decade ago. So it's an exciting time to be in the digital space. I think everyone's kind of hearing a little bit more about the buzz. And if you have any questions about weather-related, all things weather or all things digital advisory services, feel free to reach out. Be happy to follow up with you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was a great presentation. Yeah. So once again, Andrew, thank you so much. And just a moment. Yes. So if anybody again has the questions, please put up in the Q&A section. And as soon as our final speaker for the session would be done, we would be asking the questions to the speakers of this panel. So now, and for the people who would want to know more about Ignitia and Tata Steels, they are the sponsors of our event. They can individually go and visit their booths at the exhibition area. For the other people who would like to talk to Henry, they can visit him or they can message him in the lobby, in the lounge, VIP section where he is the speaker. Thank you. So now we would like to invite our next speaker, Ranita Das. She's the technical manager for GeoLife. So Ranita, please, the stage is yours now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Afseen, for giving me the platform to speak. I would like to share my presentation, just check if it's working properly.
The presentation, and then I'll let you know.
Yeah. Yes, is it visible
Yes.
completely?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. So today my topic of discussion is microbial biostimulants, and it's an exceptional approach towards sustainable crop production. So before I go ahead with my presentation, I would just give you a very short introduction about myself and my company. I am Ranita Das, currently working as Technical Manager International Business at Geolife Agritech India Private Limited. We are an Indian-based company and one of the fastest growing agri-input company in India. We have a marketing network in 22 major states with 3,000 plus dealers and distributors, with more than 10,000 retailers, and we are serving clients across 70 plus countries globally. We are a research-based company, and we have a well-established research farm and an R&D department where we have all our efficacy trials, laboratory analysis, and technical evaluation of every product before launching them. Coming to the Geolife Agri Division journey, we incepted in the year 1973, and then in 2000, our R&D initiation was set up. In 2008, Geolife Organic was formed with marketing products in India. In 2012, we turned into a private limited company, and in 2013, our other verticals like the export departments, the institutional department, the government sales department started. And in 2016, the animal nutrition department also started. And currently in 2019, we started the online sales, and now we are going towards urban gardening as well. Yes, so before we understand what are microbial biostimulants, let us just go through what are biostimulants. So as the word biostimulant was first coined by Kaufman et al. In 2007, which said biostimulants are materials other than fertilizers that and stimulate plant growth when applied in low quantities. Later on, the Agriculture Improvement Act in 2018 happened, or in the United States that was recognized, they recognized the importance of plant biostimulants, and as they recognized them as emerging technologies in agriculture. And they defined biostimulants as a substance or microorganism that when applied to seeds, plants, or rhizosphere, stimulates natural processes to enhance or benefit nutrient uptake, nutrient efficiency, tolerance to abiotic stress, or crop quality and yield. So all these factors have been included in the definition of biostimulants. Now, why is there a need for these biostimulants? The need is because of this increasing population and then the reduction in the arable land. Now, about the increasing population, Mr. Marcelo had already spoken about in this session 3. I would also like to add some points out here. But why is there a reduction in arable land? The continuous plowing of the field combined with heavy use of fertilizers and erosion and leaching has become 100 times more than soil production. Now, it takes around 500 to 600 years to build a topsoil of 2.5 centimeters. And this kind of erosion and leaching has led to this reduction in arable land, and the earth has almost lost 1/3 of its arable land in the last 40 years. So the only alternative that is left is to create more arable land by improving the yield and productivity of the land and crops that are currently being cultivated. So that is the only solution. You cannot increase the arable land, but what you can do is make it 100% production can be done from the land and the crops, so that we can use every inch of the arable land that is present. In case of increasing population, food will become a big issue. Now, currently, these are the continents ranking with the population. First is Asia with 4.6 billion people, Africa coming of second to 1.3 billion, then Europe, followed by North America and South America. And like Mr. Marcelo had mentioned, that by 2100, the African population will triple. And by 2050, the African population, which is now 1.3 billion, will double itself to 2.5 billion. As for Asia, it will from 4.6, it will come to 5.8 billion. So if you see, before like 50 years ago, one farmer was responsible to feed 4 mouths. Currently, that one farmer is responsible to feed 40 to 50 mouths, and by 2050, he will be responsible to feed 100 to 200 mouths. So, do you think only fertilizers will are enough to fulfill the demand, the increasing demand of food? I don't think so. And there comes the need of biostimulants. Now, scope of biostimulants in Africa. The Africa plant biostimulant markets is driven by several factors. First, the importance of organic farming that is increasing day by day in this region. Then there's a need of enhanced yield for every crop in Africa. There is an increased emphasis in sustainable farming as well. Other factors that are responsible for growth in the market are the food security issue that I just spoke about, the population growth that I just spoke about, and increase in the environment conscious consumer base in developed and developing countries. Currently, the African plant biostimulant market is dominated by humic acid, which kind of takes 24% of the market share, followed by fulvic acid and seaweed extracts. The market is likely to post a CAGR of 7.9% during 2017 to 2022 to reach a projected USD of 278.05 million by 2022 from an estimated 176.20 million in 2006. So we can understand that there is a demand, a growth of plant biostimulants in the African market. Now, coming to the biostimulant categories, which is very, very important, there are 4 important categories of biostimulants. One is the extracts, other is the microbes, one is the synthetic chemicals, and the other one is the hormones. So in case of extracts, most of the common and biostimulants come under this category, which is the plant extracts and the kelp, which is the seaweed extracts. Then you have the amino acids and the protein hydrolysates, decay products, humic acids and fulvic acids, sugars, fatty acid and chitin, and also microbial extracts. And other side is the microbes, which is the bacteria and fungi. We are talking about the living microbes, which forms the PGPR, that's a plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, and also the plant growth promoting funguses. So all those come under the living microbes category. Then we have the hormone category, which includes auxins and cytokinins, troublic acids, abscisic acid, and ethylene. And then we come to the synthetic chemicals, which is produced by synthetic chemistry. We also have some combination, like the extracts can be combined with micronutrients, they can be combined with NPKs, pesticides, and secondary nutrients. So some biostimulants can be made with the amalgamation of the extracts and these micronutrients. And also with combination with hormones and microbes, some can be formulated. So today we are going to talk about the extracts and the microbes because these are the 2 major categories of biostimulants. So firstly, we're going to talk about the non-microbial biostimulants. These are the major non-microbial biostimulants. One is the seaweed and the plant extracts. Then we have the protein hydrolysates, and then the humic acid, which humic substances, which includes the humic acids and the fulvic acids. Now coming to the important one, which is the microbial biostimulants. Now use of microbial biostimulants such as AMF, which is the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, and the PGPR, which is the plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, and then the PGPF, which is the plant growth promoting fungus, are highly considered as sustainable and efficient tools for securing yield and stability. So the PGPR are generally root colonizing bacteria that form symbiotic relationship with plants. And these rhizobacteria with the PGP activity include certain common strains like the Azospirillum, Azotobacter, Rhizobium, Pseudomonas, etc. In case of AMF, which is the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, we know how mycorrhizas work. They form a symbiotic association with the plant roots, and in exchange of food, they give nutrients to the plants and also increase the surface areas of the roots so that nutrients can be absorbed from different parts of the soil. And last but not the least is the PGPF, which is the plant growth promoting fungus, which includes the Trichoderma species and the Globus species, which act as growth stimulants and help of nutrients, especially in vegetable crops. And then comes their extracts. So these microbial extracts are also very, very important because they form the bioenzymes and amino acid which help in the activity of the hormones and the gene expression inside the plants, thereby stimulating the physiological functions of the plant. So these three and their extracts are considered sustainable and efficient tools, and they are also they are also efficient tools for securing yield stability in low input conditions, particularly where there is nitrogen and phosphorus deficiency. So they are also giving you the biofertilizer effects along with biostimulants. Also, as an innovative technology to improve crop tolerance to abiotic stresses that we are talking about, the weather change conditions, and we are talking about the drought, we are talking about salinity. So this is one of the important factors that microbiostimulants caters, that it helps the plants in tolerance to abiotic stresses in particularly extremes of temperatures. So why microbial biostimulants and better than biostimulants? So these are the 5 important factors which caters to this particular question. First is it enhances the soil microbial activity. So if there are extracts of microbes or there are living microbes, automatically when you are mixing it with the soil, it is improving the fertility of the soil by increasing the soil microbial activity. Also, it fertilizes the soil flora and fauna of the soil. Then protection from the biotic and abiotic stress. I'm going to specify this in my later slides also. Optimize nutrient uptake, assimilation, and efficiency. This is also a common function of biostimulants, be it non-biostimulants or non-microbial or microbial. Stimulates the plant metabolism, which is very, very important, so that the natural processes of the plants work perfectly, and it improves the crop yield and quality of the plants. So these are the 5 main functions of plant microbial biostimulants. Now coming to the protection of biotic and abiotic stress. Let's understand microbial mediated stress elevation. Now stress we all know, are majorly two kinds. One is the biotic stress, which is of extremes of temperature for heat or cold, or because of drought or heavy metals, salt, flooding, etc. And biotic stress happens because of nutrient disorders, where there is nutrient deficiency, herbivore attacks, and also phytopathogen attacks happens because when your nutrient efficiency is not good enough, your plant defense system is very, very low, and it's easier for pests and diseases to attack. So these are the 2 main stresses. And so when you are using biostimulants, they can be used both ways. You can use it in soil application also, and you can use it in foliar application as well. So when you're using it as a foliar application, there is an upregulation of nutrient uptake, better photosynthesis, better antioxidant regulation. Then there is the osmoprotectants, and it also stimulates the indole acetic acid and jasmonic acid pathway, which are responsible for plant defense mechanisms. Now, also there is a down regulation of abscisic acid and oxidative stress. So that is important for the plant growth. Then when you are using it as a rhizophoric application or in the soil, it is enhancing the microbial activity in the rhizosphere region. So both of this is catering to the soil as well as to the plants. So microbial biostimulants are helpful for the soil and for the plants as well. Now coming to this process where Geolife has rigorously understood why the microbes are so much of importance and how their extracts can be used to produce different kind of formulations. So after rigorously working on this particular technology for years, we understood that we isolated certain beneficial microbes, and we've identified certain special strains from which we've isolated certain strains and let them grow in perfect culture media so that they can complete their life cycle and we can get the best metabolite expression from these microbes. Now, metabolite expression happens two ways. There are primary metabolites and there are secondary metabolites. In case of biostimulants, we are working with primary metabolites, which is generally a metabolite extraction that comes with the bioenzymes, amino acids, and proteins. And with these extracts, we are using it in the final product. So this is the technology that we are using for building different kinds of formulations, especially in the microbial extract biostimulant category, where we are using the microbial extraction technology. So I think today I'm going to talk about a very new molecule, which is called Neurospora crassa. And this is a new PGPF, that is a plant growth promoting fungus. We know in the PGPF category, we are aware of Trichoderma, we are aware of Glomus, we are aware of Phoma, Fusarium, all these species, but we are not very aware of Neurospora crassa. Now, Neurospora crassa is an unexplored version of a PGPF, but it has been there for a long time. It is a beneficial fungus that has been used in laboratory studies for gene silencing, cell polarity, cell fusion, cell biology, and biochemistry, mostly like we use Arabidopsis in certain labs. But it has not been used as a plant growth promoting fungus. So when we studied a lot about this particular species, we understood that it has the capacity to produce special enzymes that helps the plants in complete vegetative development. Also, it has the capability to convert non-available form of carbon into the most available form for plant use. Also, the proteins that is extracted from Neurospora crassa can be used as plant nutrition, and it builds up disease resistance power as well. So these are the factors which helped us to understand Neurospora crassa more, and the extracts that we are using in our formulation as a microbial biostimulant. So with that, we have formulated this product Vigor, which is a unique MAT-based biostimulant. This is a flagship product of a company, and we guarantee yield in every crop. So it is also 100% organic. It is certified by iFoam Biocert, and we say world's #1 yield enhancer with a lot of pride because we have done extensive trials in-house and also in universities to prove the product's potential. So what's inside this Vigor? There is, of course, extracts of Neurospora crassa, which is the enzymes and amino acids, proteins, which are responsible for stimulating plant physiological functions and providing resistance against abiotic stress. Then definitely there is also some essential nutrients that is required for the plant growth. Vitamins are also there, and also antioxidants, which improve the plant defense mechanism. So how can you apply this particular product? It can be applied in 4 ways. So you can apply it as a soil application, mix it with any NPK fertilizer. You can use it in drip. You can use it as a drench application and also in foliar application. So for soil application and for drip irrigation and for drenching, the dosage is similar. It's only 250 gram per acre. And in case of foliar application, it's only 1.25 gram in per liter of water. But yes, it has to be applied in the correct time, which is during the vegetative stage. Now, this product has been tried and tested across all the state agriculture universities and all India coordinated research projects that has been happening in 18 states across India. So these are all the universities where this product has been tried and tested. It's in IIRR and also in ICAR, and also in different kinds of university across the states. Now coming to the benefits of Vigor. So there is a complete development from root to shoot of the plant. There's an increase of photosynthesis and immunity, improves the uptake and efficiency of nutrients, increases the yield and quality to the maximum optimum level. And I think and results are visible within 7 to 10 days after application. So you do not need to wait for a month, or you do not need to wait for an entire cycle of crop season to end, but you can just see it within 7 to 10 days after application. And it's assured results in all crops and tested across different climatic zones. So India has around 6 different kind of climatic zone in different states. So when you've tested across 18 plus states, it means it has worked around all climatic zones, and it can be worked in different countries and continents as well. So for optimum output, you can use Vigor at the right proportion and the right time, and we guaranteed an increased yield by 20 to 22% in any crop. So these are some of the field results of Vigor. You can see the treated and the untreated plot. This is within 7 to 10 days of application in cotton. In chili, you can see the untreated and treated plot. This is the eggplant. You can see how much the vegetation has increased here in case of the control. Paddy, that is the difference, which is one of the staple crops in India and in various Southeast Asian countries. You can see in paddy the difference in number of tillers, growth of root and plant height. So this is much more. So that's why we say that it has a complete growth from root to shoot. So even the growth of roots and plant height is easily visible from the treated to the untreated plot. Then it's the wheat. You can check the vegetation, the increase in vegetation, the height of the vegetation, the greenery of the vegetation is much better than the untreated one. And here is one of the field results of potato that we've done with ICAR and CPRI, where the control and the Vigor plot, the tuber yield is around double. Like in the control plot is 14, and here it's 21, and the percentage increase is around 51.64%. I have included the results of potato here because even Africa has a lot of sweet potato and cassava plantations, which are also tuberous crops, and these kind of crops also grow in our south region, cassava especially in Kerala. So we've done those testings there also, and we've got good results. And as you all know, that Nigeria is the highest exporter of cassava in Africa. So this product is tried and tested on cassava as well. And the last but not the least is the field trial report on Macadamia Nursery in Malawi for Vigor also. And you can see this was before the spray. You can see the vegetation is almost dead. And after 7 to 10 days of the results, you can see the vegetation has got back the greenery and the perfect stage, the perfect height, the perfect color in macadamia. So are biostimulants affordable to farmers? A very, very important question. Growers are continuously facing the need to balance the economics of input and output. So high quality and carefully researched biostimulants have demonstrated that they have the ability to overcome the cost of use through improvements in the farmer's harvestable yield. Biostimulants have added to the sustainability of the growers by decreasing the dependability of fertilizers and nutrient leaching, and they have also brought increase in the value of crops. With this, I would like to end my presentation. If you have any questions, please email us in these 2 email IDs. And you can also reach us at www.geolifegroup.com. And you can also WhatsApp us at 86576-12782. We are also premium exhibitors with this event. So you can also, if you have any questions, we can address you in our lounges and in the booth. So see you there. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Ranika. I would request you to please mute yourself so that it's clear for the other audience. Right. Thank you. We have a question for Henry. Barbara has asked a question. She has said that in her region, it's a bit arid. We grow fruits like oranges. She's not sure whether the controlled environmental agriculture can be used for this. She needs your advice, Henry, on this. Can you please answer her?
So controlled environment agriculture is, as it says, and as I mentioned, ability to control the plants to optimize it, but it doesn't come for free. You have to pay for additional lights or hydroponic systems, etc. So let's just talk about what would justify that. One is the edible biomass, the percent of the plant that's consumable. Lettuce has a very high edible biomass, but oranges do not. You have to grow that whole tree to get the fruit. So if I put that tree indoors and I spend all this money controlling the variables of the light, it's going to be very difficult to get that money back. Also, oranges ship better than things like leafy greens, and they store a little bit better than them as well. And it's not entirely sure how much more people would pay if it was closer to them. So to be honest, the technology does not allow for oranges to grow economically, in an economically viable way today. If pressure increases on the system, then perhaps in the future we'll see crops that would surprise us that could be grown in controlled environments. Now, there are some other fruits and trees that are being grown in greenhouses, but again, most of them, the vast majority of them, certainly don't use artificial light. They may use some climate control, but you may be looking at more precision agriculture, using IoT, using technologies to optimize and understand what's happening with the plant and what's happening with the soil so that you can manage water better and adapt to the arid region.
Thank you so much, Henry. I hope, Barbara, your question is now answered. So moving on, there is this another question from Christian Murray. He says, what is your perception about transparent data share issues? I think this question was for Andrew, I think, but Andrew is not here with us at the platform right now. Okay, so let's move on. I think we are now done with the questions as well. Again, I would like to tell my audience, tell the audience of the show that TARDIS Fields, Geolife, and Ignitia are our sponsors and premium exhibitors. Please visit their booths, and if you have any questions for them regarding their products and services, please get them answered directly by visiting their booths. And for Henry, you can drop the questions here, and you will also find him in the VIP lounge. Next, I think we have now come to the end of this session. Just a moment. Andrew is back with us. Andrew, we have a question from the audience. He says, I'll just ask it again. What is your perception about transparent data share issues? Is there something related to Ignitia that you would like to answer?
Yeah, it's a super important issue in data privacy all around the world as more and more digital tools and platforms are seeking to get data from users. So there are certain standards that companies abide by called GDPR standards. We're incorporated in Sweden, so we follow those standards. And basically, it's all about consent. You should not be using the data for individual farmers without their consent of knowing how they're going to receive goods and services, or others will sell their data for other purposes. So on our end, if a farmer is subscribed to the service, we inform them what we will do with the data. And they always have the option to unsubscribe from the service when it's on our B2C side, and same through the B2B2C side that I was describing earlier. But it's a super important issue. I think there's a lot of gray areas where countries who have not adopted GDPR level standards are more or less allowing some more predatory practices with data. So it's super important for us to inform the customer what we're going to do with the data, and have them be able to opt out should they not want us to do any kind of analysis, analytics with that data. So great question. On the regulatory agencies need to catch up with where the technology is today.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Christian, I'm hoping that you are now satisfied with the answer. Okay, so again, finally, we are done for the day. I would now say that the sessions are over for today, but yes, our exhibition booths are open. Networking will remain open for another hour. So please, all of you can go and network with the people relevant to your business and your understanding. You can go and meet them. Thank you all for being here with us, giving us very important information, and thank you for sharing your valuable inputs. Once again, audience, thanks to you as well. We will now close this session. Thank you once again. Please go and meet at the network booths. Bye.
Thank you.